Hi there. You hear us say it all the time, but this show and plenty others like it are only possible because so many people have given so generously for so long over at our Patreon campaign. Patreon is a crowdfunding platform for ongoing projects like podcasts, comics, things like that. Think of it like Kickstarter, but distributed over time. If you want to support this show and pretty much the entire Duckfeed network, not pretty much, the entire network, go over to patreon.com/duckfeed.tv. That is patreon.com, Patreon. It makes a huge difference. You get some rewards. You get to be part of our Slack community. It's all good. So again, that is patreon.com/duckfeedtv. Welcome to Radio Free Midworld, a podcast about the Dark Tower series of books. I'm your host, Kole Ross, and I am joined today by Autumn Greer.
Once again, delighted to be here.
Chase Greenlee.
Hello, hello.
And Paddy Smith.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you so much, all of you, for joining us for this kind of prickly section of the book, not gonna lie. The previous episode was all about just being boys on the beach. And
boys on the beach.
Yep.
Beach boys.
And we're going to have to we're definitely going to have to get through some more let's say choppy waters as we talk about the remainder of the Lady of Shadows portion of the book. So last time we talked about Eddie and Roland, who are both sick in different ways, going up the beach and getting to know each other, ultimately finding this second door leading back to New York through the mind of Odetta Holmes / Detta Walker, one of which is a very proper civil rights activist, and the other of which is something, and she's very vicious, a vicious alter ego. And so now we have brought both Detta and Odetta back to the other side, and I feel the need to give that disclaimer again. There's going to be some rocky stuff in here, and we're going to try not to dwell on it too much, but it's going to be hard not to present what is happening in the book, especially because, for all intents and purposes, excepting one character we're going to meet later, Detta is the villain of this book in a lot of ways. Is that an incorrect read, do you think?
I always think about Detta and Odetta. It's like that question from Mad Men or back in the 60s about, do you want a Jackie or a Marilyn? Except this time the Marilyn would like literally murder you with her hands.
Right. Yeah. She's a gunslinger. Oh boy. Yeah. It's pretty rough. Autumn, so you were not here last time. What made you jump on this section of the book? Because for a while on the spreadsheet there, it was kind of poison.
I saw that it was poison. I wanted to give a little space in case someone did want to pipe up and on it. But, oh, man, you guys know I love to talk about the Dark Tower. Yep. I mean, it's I guess it's my Stardew Valley that no one can stop talking about. Like now, the mail delivery guy comes and I'm like, ooh, is this a Dark Tower reference? You know, I had 19 pieces of mail.
Ooh.
I mean, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's a lot of mail. Good God. Keeping them in business. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I see. I don't know. Both Chase and Paddy were on last time, so we've got the general kind of thing. Again, things dealing with race. There's a little bit of sexual assault stuff in here as well. We're going to try and navigate it the best as we can. As shockingly enough, Roland brings Detta through, but the person who appears on the other side is Odetta. Like, this is not the person whose mind that he was in. And
we rolled into that from a very action-packed scene, too. I can see why the boys were pretty confused, particularly Eddie. Once again, I would love to see this realized in film just because, I mean, the switching back and forth with the door hovering behind people, it would be fun.
Yeah. I paid very particular attention to exactly how the doors worked in this time, because when Odetta comes through, she's really confused because nobody's behind her pushing her. So even though, Roland did kind of send her through, when they got back, Roland was in his body again with, Eddie hovering over him with a knife. So like, just, he's not coming out from behind it. Yeah.
Do you think she's still moving as she appears, and then Roland just kind of pings?
I don't know if it's like Portal or not, if they maintain the momentum.
I mean, it's the only thing that makes sense at this point.
Yeah, it's but yeah, like another important thing about the mechanics of this, like as Roland and Detta were both rolling back toward the door, and Eddie was, looking on because, hey, this is a fascinating magical portal. He saw himself. Eddie did. In fact, it made him sick, and this ends up being a very, very important plot point later on, because like it's not like a mirror. It was like looking through a pane of glass, almost, is the way he described it at another hymn. So that's going to be kind of an important way that this kind of goes. What do you guys think about Odetta's reaction to being on this side? Her, kind of just straight up denial.
For me, I was really surprised that, when you compare it to Eddie in the first half of the book, Eddie had some time. There's a little voice in his head that talks to him for a while. They work out plans. Odetta just got snatched. I mean, like, I'm taking over your body. I'm rolling your wheelchair. Let's go. There was no explanation.
Odetta doesn't seem to, because of her blanks and the switches, Odetta wasn't the one that was brought through. Detta was the one that was brought through. Odetta just like, it's another jump. Cool. Okay. And because her brain's used to kind of skipping large portions of time. Yeah. She seems like quite, I don't know. I kind of read that she was quite just unfazed. Like, oh, okay, cool.
Well, it even
brain unpack.
it even opens up with Roland thinking like, oh, any other woman under those circumstances would have certainly asked, "Where am I?" above all else. But like in the flurry of questions that she asks as Odetta kind of like comes back to life, she asks, "Who am I?" Like she's unfazed by it, because you're right, Paddy. Like that she has had an awful lot of kind of practice for this.
She definitely had a very Streetcar Named Desire, like oh, who am I? Like that. I've always depended on the kindness of strangers type of thing going. I mean, she's so polite and pleasant about it that it's almost baffling. Like, oh, hello, gentlemen.
Her first words on the other side are to Eddie, saying, "Now, what are you planning on doing with that knife, young man?" which is not the expected reaction, to say the least. Chase, you were going to say something?
Oh no, just her reaction is incredibly reasonable for the circumstances. Yeah. Just being dragged into another plane of reality. It's like, oh, okay, this is strange.
Yeah.
Could you put that down, sir, please?
Yeah. And so like Roland is off his balance because this is not the same person that he was in. And we get this awesome kind of, again, a picture of the physics of this. Roland describes being inside Eddie's mind as like being inside of a room with jittery, sweating walls. Whereas the person that he was inside, Detta, had been like laying naked in the dark while venomous snakes crawled all over you. And how's that for a description?
He uses a lot of snake language about her in general. Rattlesnakes, copperheads. I mean,
yeah,
he goes for it.
And I love the way that comes back later on. Actually, the snake stuff, but that's 3 books down the road, 3 or 4 books down the road.
As someone who really, really, really doesn't like snakes, this was quite vivid for me.
Oh yeah,
fuck snakes, man.
yeah. Where are their arms and legs?
Where's the rest of you?
Where's the rest of you?
Back, thank you very much.
There's another thing that happens here. It stretches credulity a little bit because it doesn't seem like an awful lot of time passes, but Eddie kind of immediately falls for Odetta, and Roland kind of pins it down, right? Saying, oh, as long as he has somebody to take care of, he'll be fine, he'll be better, but this reflects poorly on Roland because he knows that he would not be able to provide that. What do you all think of Eddie falling for Odetta as quickly as he does?
It's a bit quick, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's my only real takeaway is like, oh, that was very quick. You know, they're all in a big, like a high pressure situation. You know, it's a. Well, it was like, have you seen the film Speed?
Yes.
When at the end of Speed, and they're like, oh, you shouldn't form a relationship based on, you know, a high intensity situation. Like, you shouldn't. That's what they're doing.
Yep.
But we did see, like, in the previous chapter, that even the ambulance guy, like the intern that was working with him, was kind of falling in love with her. All I can think is that Odetta is just like a schizophrenic pixie dream girl, like a trope, you know?
God. Yeah, let me go ahead and squat that on TV Tropes 1 entry. Yeah. She is definitely portrayed as like this heartbreaker almost, right?
I wouldn't invite her to my 16th birthday for a co-ed party. No.
Yeah, we never get any real physical descriptions of Odetta herself, and it's not like that matters too terribly much. It's mostly just related to her eyes, specifically as it kind of comes to describing the difference between Detta and Odetta. Like, by looking at her and her expressions, people can tell which one she is, right? But other than that, like, all that we have is other people's reactions to her to really kind of like gauge whether or not this is something that'll, you know, that'll happen. Man, I'm feeling shallow for talking about her physical appearance. Fuck me.
Well, to be fair, Stephen King does spend about 2,000 words talking about how heavy her wheelchair is, which is almost like a characterization.
Yeah, it's one of those ancient things. Yeah, Eddie specifically, like later on, because this is a death march of a chapter. These 2 chapters are a death march, not because they're really long. In fact, it moves fairly quickly, but the descriptions of what's happening here, like Odetta and then also Detta's presence, taxes them in a really big bad way. So they have to get moving because they need to get to the next door. And as they're going and as they're, you know, trying to gas up, essentially, they, you know, Roland goes to get some water and Eddie starts talking with her, trying to basically convince her that, yes, this is real. We are sharing a reality because to Odetta, she has kind of these two theories. Either, you know, this is a coma dream or she has gone insane. When we get more detail about the first of those, the coma dream, and we're actually taken back and shown the thing that actually created Detta herself. The incident with the brick.
So we've had the leg incident in the last chapter, and now we get the other piece of the puzzle, or the piece taken away from the puzzle, if that makes sense.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you know, part of why Detta is so angry about the 4 special and so fixated on the blue lady, we get a little bit of like background on this. What do you think of the story of her getting wanged in the head with the brick? I can't think of a better way to say it. That sounds awful.
Can we say we enjoyed it?
Can you say
it was great.
Go into that, Paddy.
It's really fun seeing kids get beaten up. No, it's I see it not as a, like, of course there's the sudden shock of the violence of the brick in the head, mm-hmm. But I see this bit more as a painting of the times she was living in when she was, I think, 5 when that happened. Yeah. Was that right?
Yeah.
And it's more a painting of just the casual racism, or like the fact that it was so indebted where the family were waiting for a taxi to pick them up after the wedding, and they see a taxi drive up and then drive away after seeing they were a black family. And then they, I think the father, her dad was like, you know, obviously angry but trying to hide it, saying, no, we'll walk instead, you know, for fear of being the same thing happening again.
Yeah.
So I didn't see this bit so much as about the actual smack in the head, but more about sort of putting her in a time and getting an idea of where, you know, the times like the family situation as well, and getting a read on how her family situation was before getting wanged in the head with a brick.
Yeah.
That was hard to say, but yeah.
No, it's fine.
It definitely highlights
with a brick.
It definitely highlights that the universe is pretty much, what is it they say, like blind, vindictive, and cruel. I mean, like, it's just such a random thing to have happen to a very nice, affluent family. I mean, obviously they were out there doing some, they were in a part of the country that wasn't particularly cheerful at that time. Mm-hmm. Kind of speaking of that, it's been really interesting in this. I had to do a lot of Googling just because when she and Eddie are talking with each other, there's a lot of weird time anachronisms. Like, I honestly didn't remember who Krista McAuliffe was. I had to look up the Wikipedia for the Freedom Riders. I had to do a little homework for this episode, and I noticed that more in this book than any other book in the series.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what we're seeing is this contrast between their experience, right? Like, Eddie very quickly gathers that she's from a different time, and they're just constantly talking past each other with slang. So when, or just with events. So when Detta talks about Oxford, all that Eddie can remember is like being a really small child, like still in diapers, and hearing Walter Cronkite talking about Oxford on the news. Because Eddie was born in the same year that Odetta was pulled from. Yeah, there's a quote about that. Let me see here, a little section. They were speaking to each other from separate islands. The water between was time. So yeah, like, she's dropping all of these names and references, and he's got no idea. And there's the racial aspect of this too, where what do you call a black person?
Once again, Stephen King with his encyclopedic knowledge of the time, place, and exact date, I guess, that terms went in and out of fashion, at least in his own mind. At least Stephen King can keep us on track to let us know when these racial slurs became appropriate or inappropriate.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of mismatches going on between the two of them. But we're gonna learn, like, this whole event with the brick is why Odetta believes that she is in like a coma right now, because it's happened to her before, and this brick hitting her head is actually one of the inciting incidents to create Detta. This shard within her. So again, this whole thing kind of tied up, and also what we're seeing here is Odetta's defense mechanisms coming into play, because she is constantly fabricating stories or using tricks of logic on herself and in talking with Eddie to kind of like get around and explain away why this is, why the version of reality that she's made up has to be true.
Well, she's really good at that, though, because that's what she does all the time.
Yep.
And it's just reverting to natural type, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Trying to put myself in her position, maybe I think I'd gone a bit mental.
Yeah.
And was having a coma dream. You're on a beach and there's lobsters now. Oh, okay, right. Maybe I'm mental.
Yeah. There's a scary Clint Eastwood type.
Reasonable conclusion.
Yeah. You'd be crazy if you didn't consider it,
But then again, a chance to join in on the boys on the beach action, I'd be in for. So,
boys on the beach. Yeah.
There is something nice about the solitude of the first book with Roland pulling this quartet together. Like, at first, I guess you'd say Roland was doing a one bro, and now Roland's collecting the whole set, right?
He's collecting the whole cassette, yeah. Yeah.
Cassette, exactly. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah, it is cool to see him putting his team together, but like he's kind of drawn a couple of bad cards so far. There, it ends up working out, but like this entire book with Eddie's, kind of latent addiction and the things that's kind of driving him to do, putting the knife to Roland's throat. And there's going to be even more later, really. And then, Odetta, who, even when the good side of her is showing, is very obtuse and just kind of in straight up denial of what's going on. Like, this is bad news.
But I like that he brings through people that are a bit rubbish.
Oh, true.
It makes for a funner story. Like, imagine if he pulled through like Bear Grylls and Wonder Woman at first. Like, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
10 pages long, and then they went to the tower and they won. The
end. They lit a fire with a corn chip.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So here's the thing. I'm saying, oh, this is bad because I'm putting myself in the moment with the story, and I'm like, oh, God, I have to deal with this now. When in reality, like, oh, this book could be, like you said, 10 pages long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just drawing Roland's 11. There's going to be, like, 9 more people. A demolitions expert.
Oh, gosh, a Bernie Mac. Can we have a Bernie Mac?
Exactly. He's going to collect the whole set. It's going to be a fun trip to the tower. Good suits.
Good suits. Oh, you can just tell they had fun. So the thing that kind of ultimately breaks through and gets Odetta to at least acknowledge that Eddie's version of the story, with this missing time, because she believes that, like the last thing that she remembers was that she was in her living room watching the news. And has no memory whatsoever of the shoplifting at all. And Eddie says, "Hey, look at your fingers, hon, because check out what you're wearing, because that's the stuff that we saw you stealing, and it's cheap costume jewelry, the kind that Detta would steal, but Odetta, would never wear."
I like that she's like aggressively not noticed it as well. Like made a point of not seeing it.
Yeah.
And also the fact that I think Eddie calls her Detta by accident once, and she goes nuts.
No, yeah.
That's not a good name for her.
Well, she doesn't know why. She's like, "Don't call me that. I hate it." And they're like, "Oh, I had no idea." Like, there's no explanation as to what it is. Like, everybody has that nickname that you don't want to be called. So Eddie doesn't take it into account. He has no idea who Detta actually is at this point, right? But it's just it is a sign of things to come. And her tick, when she's about to turn and she gets a headache and raises her hand to her temple. So very much she is primed for that. As Roland gets back with the water, saying, "Oh yeah, I'm totally sick again. We didn't have enough antibiotics, so." Can you put that on the list for later, maybe? And
what I really like about seeing Detta and Odetta is Odetta just blocks everything out and has zero memories, and Detta has those very specifically those like shaded memories where she's like remembers the worst possible scenario, like someone's robbing her, attacking her, doing whatever. I mean, she sees the most negative aspect of it, and Odetta's just like a blank slate, like, "Oh, hello, gentlemen."
Yeah. Yeah, the way that they cope and they kind of run defense for each other is pretty great.
I think Odette is living quite a nice life anyway, so she's probably just filling in the blanks thinking, "Oh, I probably just sat around and listened to the news and went on a lovely trip."
Yeah.
She is living her best life, isn't she?
Someone's got to.
Yeah. It's hard work, but someone's got to do it. Yeah. Like the worst thing that happens to Odetta is, she falls and hits her head on the bathtub or whatever.
She did get wunged in the head with the brick that one time.
Oh, true. Yeah. But what's a bathtub if not a different kind of brick? Makes you think.
And for Detta, at least she got to smash that for special plate one time. That sounds like a great day.
Yeah. So yeah, Roland tells Eddie, "Hey, keep your guard up. Something's up here. There are 2 women in that woman. So just watch out." And Eddie doesn't really listen, and Roland knows that Eddie doesn't listen.
Thing is, for Eddie, like she's very nice. He's like, "Be on your guard." Like, yeah, but she's fine.
Yeah, no, she's a little bit obtuse, a little bit obstinate about a shared reality. But go ahead.
And he has that ableist thing too, because he's like, she's a really nice, cultured lady in a wheelchair. What's she gonna do, Roland? Like really, what's she gonna do?
Yeah.
Roll at me real fast? Like,
yeah, come on. He's underestimating her. He's underestimating her.
Yes. Is he?
I love the way the chapter Detta on the other side opens up, actually. In the middle of the night, Detta Walker's eyes sprang open. They were full of starlight and clear intelligence. Yeah, so anybody have any thoughts about the way this opens up with basically attempted murder, attempted summary execution?
Welcome to Shittown?
Yeah.
Yeah. Detta's like, I mean, we'll get into this, but she's awful.
Yep.
And he's awful from like second one of her eyes being open. Just immediately, he's like, right, how can I make life bad for all of these people?
Yeah.
And she's just awful.
So sympathy for Detta. You know, when she wakes up, she has memories of both Eddie and Roland doing terrible things to her, you know, tying her down, calling her terrible names, because that's the way that she sees the world, right? So yes, she, you know, her first, it's not true, and it is kind of a version of reality that justifies violence and viciousness like she has, but like that, like she is responding to the reality that she is kind of like filling in for herself. It's like Autumn said, filling in those gaps, right?
Well, I suppose that's a good point.
Yeah.
I will say that I don't really obviously care for Detta. She's terrifying. I don't want to be in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu cage match with her or anything, because I would most definitely lose.
Yeah.
But it is fun seeing someone kind of hand rolling his ass. Like every time she calls him, if you'll pardon my French, a motherfucker.
Yep.
I'm like, you know what? Yeah. Screw you, Roland. You're dragging us out here on this thing. Like, it's nice seeing somebody kind of stick it to Roland a little bit and tell him off, because otherwise it never happens. Like right here, like we saw that Roland is letting Eddie fall on his face. He's like, oh man, I'm gonna stay up just to embarrass Eddie, who's gonna go to sleep. I'm gonna make him look bad so he'll learn a lesson.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad to see in this high-handed guy being called a motherfucker.
Yeah, and he like Roland even says, "Oh, I need to be Eddie's court." You know, like he takes precautions to make sure nobody is going to get hurt, but you know, like just he sees this as a teachable moment.
Like when was the last time, probably in Gilead, that Roland really got his ass chewed? Like, you know, everything with his mom is stilted and awkward.
Yeah.
I mean, oh, good sir, this and. It's nice to see Roland. He probably hasn't had an ass chewing in a long time.
No. Chase, what do you think of this kind of first appearance?
You know what? I had something and then it immediately went away.
That's fine. If you remember it, go ahead. Yeah. But like even with this, you know, as Roland is watching with one eye open, as you know, she shuffles up and grabs the gun that is loaded with cartridge casings. You know, he says like, "Oh, you know, guess what? I pulled another one. Like, yes, she's evil and she doesn't have any legs, but she's a gunslinger nonetheless."
So Roland shoots with his gun. Eddie shoots with his mouth. What does Odetta shoot with?
Blind Fury.
Yeah.
Like I can't quite figure out. Like obviously she's definitely the one that shoots with her mind, right? Because I mean she's running the long game. Like she's like, okay, I'm gonna pretend to go to sleep. Eddie would never have thought of doing that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. She definitely is, I think, of the three, the smartest.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, whereas Eddie is the best at talking his way out of things, and Roland is best at improvising in the moment. You're absolutely right. Like Detta is a schemer. You know, yeah. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Jogged my mind to remember what I was going to say originally. I kind of want to know what Detta's long game is at this point, because she, you know, gets herself, out of the bedding and, to the gun and over to Eddie and tries to shoot him. But like, what was going to happen in the next 5 minutes?
I don't know.
Like, I'm not saying that wasn't a reasonable thing to do in that moment, all things considered, especially with the memories that she had. But like, it just kind of leaves me to wonder what was going to happen in the minutes, hours, and days following.
I think her long game is revenge, But once that's done, I don't think she has a long game past that. It just so happened that the long game ended quite quick, or would have ended rather quickly for her.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, I would have liked to see her yelling at those lobstrosities, like, "Look at you, motherfucker! Come on over here with your clicky claws and your data chick. I'm gonna mess you up. Come on, bring it
with your data chick. Get your data chick over here."
Yeah.
Trim you all over this beach.
Yeah. I feel like she would have ended up just clubbing lobstrosities for 3 days. Or again, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, cage match wrestling lobstrosities. They would have been terrified, declared her queen.
She'd have bitten one to death.
She'd be the lobster queen, the lobstrosity queen.
Yeah.
Oh man, which would go well with the with the hypothetical lobstrosity king that Eddie makes up to, who he is always worried is going to rise up to avenge his fallen comrades. Yeah.
I'm just picturing 6 of them carrying a litter.
They're just fanning her with palm leaves.
I can see Dad riding a really big one.
Oh yeah.
Forward, my lobstrosity.
Yeah, with a saddle made out of Eddie. Yeah. She's really evil, guys.
She's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Well, I guess to be fair, she does have a taped up package of drugs, right? I mean, she could just walk over to crawl over to the beach and get that, right? Like, I mean, it's a pretty good day.
Oh no, coked out lobstrosities? I don't want that.
But then, in the middle of all that,
lobstrosities are just on a bender.
And in the middle of all that, she gets a headache. Odetta wakes up. Oh, this is fine. Queen of lobsters. Clearly,
Yeah.
It's normal.
Yeah. Well, I'm in a coma, so nothing matters. Whee! She has the confidence. She has that Jeff Bridges fearlessness to really become great here in Midworld. Yeah. So there are a couple things we need to address because, Detta right now is still, pinning Eddie down and is about ready to club him. We have the way she talks, which again, we mentioned last week. There is a distinct patois to the way that she, is addressing. We're not going to mimic it here because we are all as lily white as the driven snow.
I can make it sound posh if you want.
Sure. I'm going to put a...
Honk Mafar.
Oh, you honk my fa. I love. I love. So she's saying honky ma fa, and that's just the way that it's written out. And I'm only saying that for the joke, which is that Roland believes that Detta believes he and Eddie are monsters called honk ma fas.
They're in Star Wars.
Yeah, no. He ran the laser shop where Han Solo got his first blaster. A laser shop like they have. Fuck me. But during this, Eddie dodges her pistol whip, and then she starts grinding her crotch against his, kind of turning it into a sexual thing because that is one of the 2 speeds that she has. And throughout this, she is lobbing an awful lot of things that I'm even a little bit too prudish to repeat. Go ahead.
Yeah.
But again, it's so fun seeing this happen to Roland. I'm like, yeah, accuse him of all that stuff. Yeah, you tell him. He deserves it. Yeah. He's not a good guy.
Yeah, she's homophobic as all fuck is the thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's real. Oh man, nobody's safe, guys.
I believe the phrase is itty bitty candle.
Yes, itty bitty candles. Whenever Roland and Eddie are conferring, her insinuation is that they are sucking on each other's itty bitty candles. Yeah, I don't know if we need to fixate on that anymore, but like, if we're not addressing a particular part of that, is just because like the point is out there. This is the way that she is speaking. There's a point about that later on as we get to the section where they're pushing her up the beach. But like, she is doing whatever she can to just piss them off because that's what she does.
I like to think that that's what I would be doing too if I felt like 2 dudes had kidnapped me in my wheelchair. I'd be like, oh, fell over again. Uh-oh. Like, I mean, I feel badly for Eddie because he was falling in love. But you know what? Good for you, Roland. You got a fever. You're not a nice guy. And I'm really slowing you down.
Yeah.
That's what you get for kidnapping me from 1966 New York.
Yeah, tying me to the wheelchair on a beach. Yeah, like they're holding her hostage. You know, just like Eddie was being held hostage when he was first brought over. You know, like it's not good.
And you do kind of justify it in your head because really, like if I rolled up on two dudes that had a lady tied to a wheelchair and were pushing her, I would not think good things.
Right.
But you really have such deep empathy the way it's written. You're like, poor Eddie and poor Roland. Oh no. I mean, you know.
Well, because they're in service of the quest, and we have the you know, just from the point of view of like, okay, we just need to get to the tower. Detta being like this is getting in the way.
It's like that rabbit in Monty Python that kills people. Like, I mean, that's what it's got to be like to have Detta in the wheelchair tied up. Because I mean, she gets it a few times. Like she gets a little bit loose, hand brakes. I mean, you're not going to want to get your face too close to her mouth or her hands.
Yeah, she almost bites off Roland's remaining fingers as he tries to tie her up.
She doesn't have a lot of cards, but she plays them.
Oh yeah, definitely. And again, she has that. She has that resourcefulness. Eddie's insight into her condition mostly comes, he admits, from watching soap operas while stoned with Henry, which is the best way to do any kind of research. I say that only half kidding because most of the things I know, not from being stoned, but just from consuming pop culture. But like that, again, this is Eddie's view of the world and, you know, what he brings to it. And Roland grasps the concept right away because he understands possession, right?
Yeah, no, I was thinking about it. It seems like Roland has a more nuanced view of it than Eddie does. Like Eddie has the modern, our world, I guess, approbation or like phobia about mental illness where you use kind of slang terms around it. And Roland probably has the best take on Detta out of the two of them.
Yeah. Like he even
says, he's been in people's head. Yeah, he's been in someone's head. He knows what it's like to be the second person in the head.
He's been in her head.
Yeah.
That's a strange thing to say.
I know what it's like to be the second wheel. Yeah. He definitely. I love the line. So Eddie says, "Oh, I'm not a shrink," and then you know Roland expresses a little bit of like, "What are you talking about? A shrink?" He says, "Oh, it's like a psychiatrist, doctor for your mind." And Roland's bit is like, "Oh, I like shrink better. Her mind is too big for her body. Like there's too much mind in there. We need to get them down to size."
But to be fair, Roland probably also believes in bleeding people because of humors and things.
Yeah,
again, you know, that like, oh, your humors are out of balance. But when it comes to the mental health aspect, he's doing pretty well.
You know that Van A at some point taught him how to do trepanation.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's nice little hodgepodge there. But this is also the point where where Eddie explains, hey, when you roll me back, I saw myself. And this probably also has something to do with exacerbating the situation because for that moment, Detta also saw, recognized her duality there too. And so Roland says like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if we could join the two of them because there are things that we need in Detta, right? Again, kind of giving away the ending of the book a little bit. Spoilers, I suppose, but it's the same book and we're about halfway through. Like there are good things about both Detta and Odetta, and that is something that I'm definitely trying to pay attention to as we are seeing the wilier side of Detta herself. Like, is that coming through to you guys? Because it was really hard for me to see anything positive about Detta on the first time through.
I can see exactly what you mean. Like they're sort of two halves of a person. Yeah. Sort of the good and the yin and the yang, almost. Like Odetta's got the people skills, and Detta's got the action to sort of nail it down, and the two together would be really powerful. Yeah. That'd be a good combination. That's a good team.
Yeah.
Detta's probably the only person that we've seen besides Roland that has encountered any kind of violence before. Like when she's picking up guys and taking them to roadhouses in the car and getting in and out, and she's the only person that's kind of been in the shit, if you will, as opposed to Eddie, who just there at the tail end had that shootout. Detta's been playing around with a little violence for a number of years.
Yeah.
She's been inflicting the violence as opposed to kind of just having it happen around her.
Yeah. But, she has proven to be able to survive under adversity, right? Like, Eddie very much seems like a softer kind of creature of civilization, whereas both Roland and Detta seem like they would be, self-sufficient out in basically the wasteland that Midworld has become,
Man, Eddie really is or I guess Gary Sue. That's what you call it, right? When it's a man. But I'm like, that'd be me. Never hit anyone with my hand, but I'm a little funny. Yeah, I'll be fine in Midworld. It'll be fine. Yeah, I don't even know how to make a fist. You put your thumb in or out. I don't know. I'm basically a gunslinger.
As long as you're somebody around to do the real work,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I can definitely push a wheelchair. I know that much.
And I can carry the pills. That's all I need to do.
I know a lot about Keflex, which Roland needs.
Yep.
He's like every other member of the Justice League that isn't Superman.
Yeah, pretty much.
They're just there to get rid of kryptonite.
Yeah. So yeah. Let's see here. There's the Honk Mafaz line. Again, just I love the idea of these monsters that are being here. And this is where the Death March kind of begins, because, if they made slow progress before with Roland sick and Eddie suffering through his withdrawals, now pushing this monstrosity of a wheelchair with Detta, who keeps on grabbing the emergency brake and flipping herself out. Specifically for the purpose of tiring them out, right? Like, this sucks.
Yeah, she's wearing them down, like, physically and then also mentally as well.
Yeah.
By just keeping on and on and on and not stopping.
Right.
And not letting them have any rest, and just like fighting the wheelchair, which then they say, like, between her and the wheelchair weighs, 250 pounds, I think they measure it at?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If that gets knocked over, that takes a bit of time to get back up again, because this is like a 1960s wheelchair, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On sand, Christ.
Yeah. She says, like, it took you 10 minutes to get me back up that time, huh? Or aren't you getting tired out?
I will compliment Roland and Eddie. They did a very good job of keeping their temper, like to a degree that I wouldn't have thought possible. I mean, there's one moment where Roland has a quiet talk with her, and he's like, "Hey, buddy, you're gonna need to be a little more quiet, okay?" Yeah. But I mean, he's still very pleasant, considering, like, I will gag you, okay, bud?
Yeah, if I gag you, you're probably gonna die. People choke, okay?
Yeah, just throwing it out there. Yeah. But we're all friends here.
Yeah.
You just need to shut up.
Yeah, because just shut up. I loved how cheerful you were when you said that. Yeah, well, I mean, like, but that was in response because eventually she starts screaming at just odd times, especially during the night, like to wake them up. And she says, "Oh, I'm testing you. There may be wolves. I want to be sure you'll get up to protect me if there are wolves." Except she calls them woofs, which is really, really funny.
Which is the funniest boy who cried wolf thing ever. Like, you never want to say that you're like it's actual wolves, because I mean it's the biggest cliche of all time, right?
Totally didn't. I did not like link that to a literal crying of wolf.
Yeah, the Lady of Shadows that cried wolf.
Oh my gosh, she's not eating. Like, she is, starving herself out essentially, as they are using the last of their shells to kill lobsters to feed all of them, including her. And she has like this really stubborn, like, little kid logic about it. Like, no, I'm not going to eat that because you poisoned it. He eats one part of it. No, you poisoned the part you're going to give me. He eats the other part. Doesn't matter.
Which is very much like the strategy from The Princess Bride with the poison, right?
Yeah.
No, everything's poison.
Yes, it's all poisoned. Oh, man.
There was one line in there where they were talking about, all right, maybe it was Eddie that was thinking, I wonder if she would like to eat one of these lobstrosities, knowing that they ate Roland. And I hadn't put it together before, but a lobster's or crustaceans, I guess, or any seafood is probably the only 100% carnivore that I ever eat. I mean, I know a chicken will eat a bug every now and then, but for the most part, we eat herbivores. I hadn't thought about what lobsters really eat before.
Huh. I have no idea what lobsters eat. Don't they eat like rock slime and stuff like that?
Like, they eat cowboys.
Yeah, like if you see a cow, you don't think, I wonder if that cow is eating a dead body. With a lobster, you might need to be like, huh.
But like it's one of those things. Like they're are they obligate carnivores, because even stuff that we consider to be herbivores, like there's that video of a deer eating a pigeon, right? Yeah,
Pigs are the one I worry about.
Oh yeah,
you see
yeah.
Snatch, right?
Pigs will eat you in a second.
Yeah, no, yeah, never trust a person with more than 4 pigs. You know. Yeah, yeah. I have no idea what lobsters or any other crustaceans eat. I kind of just always assumed they were just like filtering stuff out of the water, maybe.
Maybe that shrimp, but don't crabs go over and eat pieces of things and lobsters?
Really, whenever I see a crab, he's either smoking or he's holding a knife, because that's my only. I mean, it's the internet. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I can assure you that as soon as we finish up this podcast, I will be Googling deer eats pigeon.
Yeah, it's kind of upsetting, actually.
Okay, I found what lobsters actually eat.
Oh,
Okay.
you found that too? Okay.
Okay, lobsters like to eat crabs, clams, mussels, starfish, smaller fish, and sometimes even other lobsters.
Oh, yeah.
So we're eating cannibalistic carnivores now. Brilliant.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of other animals have as many taboos about cannibalism as we do. I think it's a court of last resort because of disease spreading, maybe, but yeah. Are we really talking about cannibalism?
Hey, and the sea is a tough place, just like where Roland lives.
Oh, true.
Ooh.
Yeah. Mamas, don't let your sons grow up to be lobster food. Yeah. So good.
Oh, I was just going to say, but to be fair, after eating all of this lobster, nobody's doing so well. Like, nobody's feeling good. It's not helping sick Roland very much at all with his fever and everything. My boy needs some vitamin C.
Yeah, they're getting scurvy. All of the symptoms sound horrible, but especially the teeth rolling around in their gums.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a
I
nightmare.
like that Roland calls it shipmates disease. That's a nice term, and immediately you know what that is.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. They're like, oh, it, like he even laughs about it, like it's a joke, really. We need fruit, we need greens. Like it's that simple. Because this whole beach is barren. And like at one point they describe like, oh, nothing would grow. Occasionally there are just weeds poking out, laying limply like they're embarrassed to be there.
Why doesn't Roland have anything cool in his magic bag?
I don't know. I think maybe Martin took all the magic out of it.
Yeah, we don't even see him smoking anymore.
No. Has to kill him, doesn't it? Eventually he gets more. He gets more zigs, I think.
Well, and for Eddie being a junkie, I would imagine it would be a nice thing to help him transition.
Yeah. A couple of stale donuts, some coffee. Yeah.
As I was reading this chapter, I kept thinking, why doesn't Roland do the bullet trick again? Like, just hypnotize her, zonk her out a little bit. See if maybe you can do some shrink work while he's in there. I don't know. I don't know how this thing works.
That's a very
maybe
great question.
Maybe because he's missing his fingers.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. That's an amazing point. Maybe he's just not as gifted with the left hand, right?
Yeah, he's taken a penalty. He's taken a penalty to his dex score.
Yeah,
with that one. I just want to see. I want to see him. I just want to see visually, just him pick up this shell, like watch this, and just get it on his fingers and go and drop and just stare at it, just furious.
It's a short film.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. I completely forgotten about the bullet trick. I'm flashing forward in my memory. I don't know if old Roland ever does it again.
Well, I guess to be fair, he didn't want to give her a good look at those bullets, since later that's the only thing that saves them.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's an awful lot of like, this is the only time they ever worry about counting bullets in the series. Just because, again, half of the shells have been ruined, and at a certain point here they run out, and so Roland says, "Hey Eddie, guess what? Guess what you're beating to death tonight."
It's not what you think.
The answer may surprise you. But yeah, like they're just really resenting this whole situation. They can't sleep anymore because Detta is shouting. Detta, again creating these memories. She's manufacturing these memories of Eddie and Roland taunting her with poison lobster while they eat beef and drink beer, like, and then just like bait her with it. It's it's not good for anybody.
And it's clearly like fabricated to the point where it's overrating what's in front of our eyes as well, because they clearly have not eaten any beef or drank any beer for a while.
Yeah, their teeth are swimming in their gums.
Yeah, like that's the mental pictures she's making are overwriting reality in her eyes, I guess.
Right, and it's
you get that a bit with Odetta as well, though, don't we? So
yeah.
Doesn't Roland even mention that he'd rather have a beer than a Pepsi at this point? He's like, God, a cool beer would feel so great down my throat right now,
I believe
even better.
so.
Or I think it was aspirin. He's like, I'd rather have that than Aston. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't.
Yeah, it's a miracle. Come on, man. There's a funny exchange here. I want to make sure that we get it out. Like they're trying to play good cop with her. Roland is anyway, saying like, "Hey, I'll loosen your ropes a bit if you're going to be still." And then she says, "Suck shit out of my ass, Mafa." And then he says, like Roland's honest response is, "I don't understand if that means yes or no." Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know.
He's sort of looking over his shoulder at Eddie, like,
can you translate, please? Please just run some kind of interference for me. This is bad.
No, I don't understand. Do I want to be a muffa or don't I?
Yeah. Is there a chart I can consult? And well, there's even a line, right? Like Roland says, "I only understand 1 out of 10 things that come out of her mouth." And Eddie says, "Well, I've got you beat there. I understand 2 out of 3." And this gets down to something that's kind of important because we've made a big deal about the way that Detta talks in this very again cartoonish patois, this Southern accent that is so that is so deep and so cartoonish that nobody can really penetrate it. And Eddie, upon realizing that she's basically gaslighting them or attempting to by acting, like even being afraid of a wet rag to like wipe her cuts clean. Eddie points out like, oh, it's just an act. Even down to the accent, to the way that she's talking, to the way that she talks, it's a terrible, terrible act. Going as so far as say it's so stupid, so goddamn hokey. Again, this is Detta talking like I don't know a better way to say this. So buckle up, talking like the worst example of like what a black stereotype or cliche would be.
Like a Gone with the Wind being forced to do the mammy type of like a this is the role that's been written for you type of thing. And Odetta's a bit that way too. I mean, she's just such a beige area that's so nice that it's they're both such acts.
Yeah.
Well, I think the fact that Detta's not a real person, like she wouldn't have grown up and learned how her manner of speaking is kind of would have mellowed into all the things. She's just kind of pulling pop culture things and bits to kind of construct a personality out of this like aggressive, vicious thing. And she's more of an amalgam of, the stereotypes almost, I think.
Yeah.
All I have to say is thank God she's from the 60s because that's the only jump that a lot of people have on her, and then that Roland's a gunslinger. Because if she were from the future, she'd probably have robot wings. She'd be making jokes about Bitcoin, and she would be messing these boys up.
Oh, God.
Like...
I'm sorry. Which where do you come from? Oh, we live on oil rigs off the coast.
Yeah.
Like,
have you ever heard of a movie called Waterworld? It's like that, and I'm about to mess you boys up.
Do you have any smokes? No. Okay, good. What?
Thank goodness she's. Obviously, Detta's a quick study, but thank goodness she's not on even footing, and that she is in a wheelchair. Because again, she would destroy these boys.
Oh yeah. Like she has such an upper hand, even with her kind of compromised mobility. Yeah. So there's that, and there's probably any number of discussions that could be had about whether or not that ameliorates the depiction here, but that I feel like we talked a lot about that last time too. But like that is at least the in fiction justification for why Detta is so over the top.
I think she needs to be extreme for them to have a reason to do something or want to do something about her.
Yeah.
They can't live with this person. She's impossible.
Yeah.
Like if she'd have been more reasonable, they'd be like, we can make this work.
How good?
Oh, I was just going to say there's a point towards the end talking about how Eddie was falling in love with her, where Roland touches Eddie's arm, and Eddie kind of feels like a little bit of love towards Roland again. And again, it just does remind me of me in junior high. Like, okay, well, now Detta's mean, but Roland touched my arm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Very much just kind of responding, just picking up whoever the last person talked to him.
Yeah, we're all just so in love.
Yeah.
Hey, Roland, how do you think I'd look in a cowboy hat?
Roland, do you have any extra hats? Can we swing by your place and get some extra hats? My place is gone. It's been gone for millennia. Okay. Well, let's... Yeah.
Mrs. Eddie Duchesne.
Oh, man. Just so impressionable. He needs somebody to need him, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a certain point here where it's not Detta's fault that they fall over, but you know, Eddie is just at the end of his rope and gets frustrated, pushes her through a little sand trap, and then knocks her over. And this I think is up there for some of the most terrifying images in the book, really, in a book full of them. Like she is down. The slip knot has been tied in such a way that if she's tipped over, she chokes. And she is laughing and wheezing with all the breath that she has as her face is turning blue. Like, haha, guess what? You fucked up, didn't you? Like, dying the whole time as they try and right her, even as she's strangling.
And this is that satisfying thing about Detta, which I did not, as you mentioned, appreciate the first few times that I read it, and just until this recent thing. There is something very satisfying by how badly she's holding up these boys, how they're having to have to put up with her. And again, for Roland, who can be very high-handed with everything we saw in the first book with Jake, good. You tell him, Detta. You tell him.
Yeah, she even sees through, like, you know, when he starts talking past Detta, talking to Odetta, like saying, hey, if you're in there, if you can exert any kind of control, you know, she does everything but spit in his eye. Yeah.
And I do really enjoy that Detta does. I mean, she pretty much does exactly what I do after a big fight, is rewrite everything to just, like, have me as the victor. Like, listen, I'm just sitting here. You guys are the ones that...
Calmer than you are.
Exactly. Listen, I'm not the one who's tugging on that dude's candle, okay? I'm just sitting here being cool.
Yeah.
I like the laughing as well. Like,
oh yeah,
it's that sort of the feeling of worth it. You've run and you've grabbed someone and jumped off a building to go like fucking worth it.
This is inconvenient for you.
And it is that infuriating, like someone had mentioned earlier about her not having a childhood. Like it is that infuriating toddler thing too, where if you show them something shiny, they stop bawling and start going, "Oh, what's that?" Like that they can shut the tears off and on. Like the fact that she's laughing, it is that id type of thing where, oh, it's so funny to see someone get hit in the face by a like a pratfall type of thing.
Oh, of course, yeah. Even if it is you, yeah.
Do you think they'd have been more rough to her if she hadn't have had any of the Odetta stuff? Like the fact that they met her as a calm, reasonable person. Do you think they'd have been more willing to just, you know, sort of choke her unconscious for the sake of argument to make their lives easier?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah, I think Roland might have, but I think Eddie wouldn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it all kind of goes to show that, or, you know, kind of reinforce the fact that Detta doesn't really have a long game in this. It is just to stymie and ruin these boys' day.
Yeah.
Destroy that beach party.
Yeah. Just bust up the boys on the beach. Yeah. It's, like I have no doubt that she thinks anyway that if she is free of them, if she is free of her tormentors, she can get out. I have no doubt that she thinks that. You know, it's probably not true, but.
But But to Odetta's credit, in every other area of her life, Odetta's been a millionaire. So Odetta probably largely can get her out of any scrape that she gets into because she's a dentifrice millionaire.
Yeah, but that doesn't spend on this side.
No.
Yeah. So she doesn't have that. She doesn't have that safety. That safety net. And imagine a Roland and Eddie-less Detta, going around, and then just one day Odetta wakes up in a strange wood with a gigantic bear hovering over her.
There is a great commercial in there, right? Like, because the one thing the lobsters don't take is American Express.
No, they will.
Like there's a credit card like thing right there, right?
Yeah,
like
they will not take your tooth money. In fact, all of their teeth are inside their stomach. It's kind of gross.
Exactly. Listen, lobster, I'll write you a check, man. Don't dad a chick me.
So this kind of sets up the scene. They rescue her from choking to death as she laughs at all of their misfortune. And this makes Detta say, "Hey, I'm going to throw up," and she starts convulsing and screaming about the plate and the blue lady, and then passes out. And right as Odetta wakes up, Roland passes out, because let's take stock here. Again, like everything about this chapter is just showing how far up against the wall they are. They're out of bullets. No bullets that are sure to fire are around anymore. Right? They've used them all up. They can't sleep and haven't slept well because Detta has been screaming. Eddie is probably still working off some of the effects of being a heroin addict. Roland is sick and already passing out here. They can get food, but all the food they can have won't actually give them the nutrition that they need. So they're slowly starving to death on dry land. Like it's all this stuff just like stacking against them. It even says like Roland passes out 30 miles south of where the beach ends.
All he wants is a Pepsi, just one Pepsi.
Man, my kingdom for a Pepsi. Yeah. So final thoughts here about all this stuff. I feel like we've navigated it. Oh, okay. Chase, how about you? Any wrap up thoughts about the Lady of Shadows Part 2?
This part of this half of the portion of the book moved by at such a blinding pace. This has probably been the quickest moving set of chapters that has been in the book so far. And it really kind of kept me engaged. Every so often, even for short spurts of a book, just because I no longer have an attention span, it takes me a couple of goes to try and get through it. I sat down and read this all in one sitting. And it was incredibly entertaining the whole way through.
Yeah.
And I'm excited, as I've said a couple times, I'm reading this as we're going along. So I'm really excited to pick back up and see, because this is a pretty rough spot, because now we've got two foreigners to this land kind of on their own here.
Yeah.
With Roland out of commission.
Yeah. I can assure you the rest of this book gets real.
Nice.
Yeah. Paddy, how about you?
Honestly, much the same, actually. Entirely honest, it does, it bangs through. I did the same thing yesterday. I kind of sat down for my reread to sort of make some notes and stuff, and I got through it in one go as well. This is blasted through it. I really, really got through this bit quick. I like that they take time on each sort of half of Odetta. It's basically a 50-50 split. Half of it is Odetta, the other half is Detta, and you get a really good idea of what each half of her brings, and the sort of the real danger that Detta does put Roland and Eddie in, and the reason why they have to then keep moving. And then by the end, when they're worn down and you're hopeless, and I think the pace of the book helps that. I was exhausted by the end of this. I was tired with them. This poor guys. She's got her reasons, but she's awful.
Yeah.
Just a terrible person, man. Never invite girls to the beach.
This is a boys' beach.
Boys on the beach. Whoop, whoop.
Autumn, how about you?
I think the first few times that I read this, it was really hard for me to get past some of the stereotypes and everything. But reading it again, once I decided to set that aside, I think Detta is one of the most terrifying characters in the series, hands down. I mean, she is terrifying, and for someone that's not scrappy, and I wouldn't say that I'm particularly cunning. Like if I went to an escape room, I'd probably have to stay the night in the building after everyone left, because I'd be like, I still can't get out, guys.
The escape room would turn into a church lock-in.
Yeah. My friends would be taking the pictures of the sign, and I'd be like, where am I? Is this a bathroom?
How did Autumn get lost in the vents?
Exactly. How did she in the air ducts? As someone that is not particularly crafty and not particularly scrappy, I've really enjoyed rereading her this time, because she is one of the scariest characters in the series.
Yeah. I will say I'll agree with everybody, but specifically about the pacing. Like, think about all the stuff that we talked about and the things that happened over the course of these chapters. Not an awful lot of action transpired. Right? Like, this is not a shootout in a bar. This is not, a fast pace, like, we're dealing with customs. Like, this is them bringing somebody through, talking with them, and like getting the size and shape of her dysfunction, and then dealing with this person who is tied to a chair but is still making their life miserable. They're doing so much with so little. I think that there's like a lot of really canny things that King does with like compressing time in this. Like, it is not kind of presented in a straightforward linear fashion. Like, they're skipping a lot of stuff. They're going days in and days out with a lot of this to kind of create, again, just this accumulation of exhaustions, right? Yeah. I dig it. It's it is uncomfortable because of the race thing, and that's not going to go away for the rest of this book. It does get better in the rest of the series, and thankfully, this is about as bad as it's going to get. But yeah, we're going into kind of this kind of wild climax as all the pieces are going to come into place. So I'm very excited about it, and I'm excited to have everybody in with it. So next time we're going to be talking about the first section of The Pusher. That's going to include the reshuffle and all the chapters up through the honeypot. And we're going to end with the honeypot. I forget exactly what the end of that chapter is, but it's there. You'll see it. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with that. In terms of admin, I probably mentioned this at the beginning of a couple of episodes, but go check out the Diggity Duck bundle that has episodes of all of the current shows on the network, including this one. We sat down and we went through Stephen King's 1408, thinking that there were not that many, thinking that there were no Dark Tower connections. But Autumn, you brought a lot of stuff to the fore with that.
I heard it all from my mailman. He brought me a lot of mail.
Yeah. 19 pieces. Yeah, that was a fun episode. I've heard good things about it. People are happy that we're talking about 1408. So go check it out. That is at Duckfeed.tv/store, where you can buy that. The proceeds, all of it goes to charity. We're splitting it up between three great causes: the ACLU, CARE, and the National Domestic Abuse Hotline. And it's been a resounding success so far in the month or so that it's been out as of the time we're recording this. But otherwise, subscribe to us, tell your friends, and leave a rating or review on iTunes if you can. Let's see. Autumn, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me in the Radio Free Midworld Slack on Duckfeed, and then you can also find me on Twitter at Mrs. Greer. That's at MISSUS Greer.
Yeah. Chase, how about you?
You can find me on the Duckfeed Slack as Chase G. You can find me on Twitter at TQLoudly, on my website, cagphoto.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/ChaseGphoto.
Yeah. And Paddy, how about you?
Well, you can find me mostly on Twitter, at Paddy Stardust. I am half of the Twin Humanities podcast, which is the other Dark Souls podcast you might have heard of. We put things out occasionally. You can find that on at Twin Humanities. That's a really good place of finding us. And if you go on YouTube, I'm currently doing a One-Bro run.
Oh, nice.
And I can't beat Ornstein and Smell at the moment. It's going okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've not beaten them at time of recording, but by the time this goes out, hopefully I will have, because that would have been 20 episodes of failure by this point.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And I'm taking questions as well, so if you have anything you want to ask me, throw me a comment on one of those videos and I will answer it. If you want to ask me a Dark Tower question, I'll try and answer it. That'd be great. And you can find that on YouTube, Twin Humanities Pod. I think you'll find it on.
Okay, cool. I'll put that in the show notes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much to the Assemble panel, to Autumn, to Chase, and to Paddy. And we will be around for you here. Tell your friends again, please. And we'll see you next time. But until then, long days and pleasant nights.